Let's give you the markets update now, and the JSE closing trade on Tuesday. Well, some losses and earlier gains. In fact, the contrast here is that global markets moved in the opposite direction to make some gains on the back of the U.S. consumer inflation data. Oil and on the other hand, remaining in the negative territory. Let's get a sense now of how things are shaping up at the JSE, and we speak to Sanlam Private Wealth Director Greg Katzenellenbogen. Greg, good morning to you and thank you for your time. Let's begin with why the JSE seems to be losing momentum. How are the markets faring in early trade?
Well, look, it's up about 1/5% this morning, but it hasn't been a great time for the markets. Yesterday was a particularly bad day. But we're really taking our guidance from what's happening in Asia and China in particular, as opposed, you'll see the US market is doing quite well, but we have been really focusing on what's happening in China, and with the Chinese economy under some pressure, it hasn't really ignited as expected after the COVID lockdown was lifted in China. So the JSE, unfortunately, is at the moment we are really taking our direction from China, and at the moment everything is negative in China. There was, the economic committee met today, and the market seemed a bit disappointed by the lack of stimulus, whereas previous years, their number one priority was boosting domestic demand. That priority is now number two, and the number one is industrial policy. So China is sort of at the moment ignoring the clarion calls for more stimulus, but at some stage they will have to address their property sector, which is a very big worry for them, and they've been forcing banks to try and bail out some of these property players, and the banks have been unwilling to do so. And whenever the Chinese have lowered their reserve rate requirements, the banks have been very reluctant to pass on that to the Chinese consumer.
Well, you've addressed the China disappointing lack of stimulus there. Let's then perhaps launch into company news and talk about the possible activist investors, or should we say a breakup of Anglo-American in the future, unless the shares, or should I say the share, recovers. What is going on there?
Well, I think investors are losing now patience. You know, Anglo-American is top quality mining house, and it has top quality assets across the spectrum. It's got copper, it's got diamonds, it's got platinum group metals, it's got steel making, coal, and some nickel, and of course iron ore. So it's a diversified mining house. So when things are not going well in one area, it should give protection and others are outperforming. The problem is that they had an investor update on Friday where they updated their production numbers, and they've cut their production. They say that they're looking to save about $1 billion in terms of costs. The reason they've cut their production is, I think, in terms of their forecast, they expected a lot of technological advances, and that's where their forecast came from, and they're seeing that it's probably been slower to happen. So we are now seeing forecasts that they should be able to meet. We know that in the platinum group metals, things are very, very tough. The platinum prices come down, the palladium prices come down, rhodium has fallen off a cliff. Obviously, it was very, very high when Russia invaded Ukraine. And that's come back well. So that diamonds also has been a little under pressure. People are concerned that there's more and more appetite for man-made diamonds, but I dispute that. I think that, given the choice between a fake diamond and a real diamond, most women are going to choose the real diamond. And woe betide anyone who comes with a fake.
Yeah.
But given that, I think that with Anglo-American investors, when Mark Cutifani left, the company was valued at about over £50 billion. It's now valued at about 30, so about 20 odd billion has been wiped off. So I think that the big disappointment was that slashing the copper production, because they've got some geological problems in South America. So instead of producing 900 to 1 million tons, it would be something like 700,000. That's taken the equivalent of one mine's copper production out of circulation. It should underpin the copper prices, but unless the share price starts recovering, investors are going to lose patience. We saw a couple of years ago a very big activist investor took a stake in BHP Billiton and got them to divest from their oil business, and it's been very good for shareholders. So I would assume that if things don't pick up soon, that you will find a similar strategy happening with Anglo American, but it remains a top quality company with top quality assets.
Let's talk about RGS, which has gone to court in an effort to be the first in line at a Tongaat Hewlett credit vote. It seems a very, very a tense one, this particular issue of Tongaat Hewlett. Talk to us about what's going on in this particular deal.
So with the RGS, that's the Mozambique consortium. It's basically, they say they've got the money and Vision doesn't have the money, and we do know that Vision had spoken to meetings with a lot of banks in order to get the money to pay the creditors, but it seems those talks were unsuccessful. They're now involved in a second round of talks, but RGS say they've got the money and they want this vote to go ahead on Thursday. Now the business rescue practitioners and a few other people are asking the courts to delay the vote till January the 11th. So I think RGS is basically saying that, the Vision Group has been favored by giving them more time, whereas they have the money right now and they want the vote to go ahead. So later today in the Durban High Court, the judge will decide whether the vote goes ahead tomorrow or will be postponed till January.
Let's conclude with the Entrepreneur Village Network. It's called CoSpace. It wants to expand beyond Gauteng. Are we seeing signs of a demand from entrepreneurs and small business owners here? And is this a good sign for the commercial property space in general?
Well, I think it's a good sign for the economy. I don't know whether it's a good sign for commercial property space, because these are small businesses who rent smaller spaces and are not in a position to enter into multi-year leases for office space. So while the backbone of this economy is small entrepreneurs and hopefully will continue to be that way, I don't think it gives any indication that commercial property owners are out of the woods yet. But things are picking up for that as the economies around the world start to grow. But unfortunately here in South Africa, as you know, we are challenged in terms of our growth because of the problems that we are all aware of, besides, load shedding plus logistic supply. So until South Africa's economy starts to show signs of recovery and policies are put in place to be pro-growth, I think that the commercial property sector is not out of the woods yet.
Greg Katzenellenbogen, Director at Sanlam Private Wealth, thank you very much for that market update. All right.